exploring the land and establishing posts as they went. In 1534, Jacques Cartier, on his first voyage to the New World, sailed into a fine natural harbor off the Gulf of St. Lawrence and landed near the present town of Gaspé. He erected a large wooden cross and claimed the land for the King of France. "400 years later, a massive granite cross was raised in Gaspé town. Some 300 miles upstream, where the Saguenay River empties into the St. Lawrence, lies the little village of Tadoussac, visited every year by thousands of tourists making the little frame chapel at Tadoussac replaces the bark cabin which was the first Christian mission in Canada. The bell in the tower was brought from France in 1647. Upriver at the first narrow strait of the St. Lawrence stands the famous old city of Quebec, dominated by the stately Chateau Frontenac. Near the chateau stands the monument to Champlain, the founder of Quebec and later the governor of French Canada. In the square before the chateau, there are always plenty of cabbies and their horses. This quaint form of transportation is a popular way of seeing the old city, and most visitors enjoy a ride through the cobbled streets. No visit is complete without seeing Sous le Cap, the narrowest street in Canada. The citadel of Quebec has figured prominently in Canada's history. During the eventful years of World War II, Roosevelt and Churchill met here to plan world strategy. With its ancient guns dominating the river, the citadel is the center of the historic fortifications of Quebec, the only walled city in North America. Westward on the Plains of Abraham stands the imposing monument which marks the position of that famous battleground. Here died Wolfe, and not far away fell Montcalm, gallant commanders of the British and French forces. At the archives, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham comes to life through old prints and paintings. The British forces, led by Wolfe, sailed quietly by night up the river, landed at the cove, scaled the cliffs to attack, and finally won the battle and captured Quebec. Quebec has contributed a rich chapter to the history of the great river on which it stands. From Quebec, the water highway moves inland to where the St. Lawrence is joined by the Ottawa and the Richelieu rivers. Île-aux-Noix is the gateway from the south to Fort Chambly and a group of historic cities and towns in this general area. The little town of Verchères, on the south shore of the St. Lawrence, lies on the historic route by which the Iroquois and later the Americans invaded Canada. Not far from the water's edge stands a stone monument and bronze statue honoring Madeleine de Verchères, the heroine of the town. The children of Verchères like to play at their favorite game of Madeleine and the Iroquois. The Richelieu River forms a water link between Lake Champlain and the St. Lawrence. Situated in the middle of the Richelieu, Île-aux-Noix commands this route. On the island, rising from the waters of a wide moat, are the earthen ramparts of Fort Lennox. Around the parade ground are grouped the well-preserved stone buildings, constructed on massive lines. In the summer, Fort Lennox is a favorite spot for visitors. But late in the season, stillness reigns, recalling memories of officers and men who were stationed here in the wilderness almost 200 years ago. Farther down the Richelieu, about 20 miles from Montreal, Fort Chambly stands on a point of land where shallow rapids obstruct the river. The fort has long been abandoned as a military post, but it has been restored and preserved as an historical showplace. Built originally of wood in 1665 to protect the settlers from attack by the Iroquois, it was garrisoned by French troops. Many of these troops remained in New France, settling along the frontier in the neighborhood of Montreal. Some of the officers received grants of land and became landlords and seigneurs. A few old seigneury houses still stand today with their grist mills nearby. Here, a portion of the produce was collected as annual rent from the tenant farmers, living in the familiar pattern of narrow farm strips, their houses forming an endless village along the river. Today along the river sail countless freighters, ocean liners, and pleasure boats of all nations, traveling the St. Lawrence, that same broad highway so familiar to Canada's early explorers. Canada has come a long way since those early days, since the first white men looked down from Mount Royal and saw the little Indian village of Hochelaga below, Among the homes and factories, the shops and busy streets of Montreal, there still remain many landmarks that tie the present to the historic past. Notre Dame Church, built in 1824, replaces an older one which stood in the middle of Notre Dame Street, now the bustling Place d'Armes. Thousands of Montrealers daily stream by the monument of Maisonneuve, founder of their city. This is one of the oldest sections of Montreal, close to the waterfront, where the early fur traders made their headquarters. On the square stands the old seminary of Saint-Sulpice. Built in 1685, its picturesque clock face and belfry were added early in the 18th century. A few blocks away is the Château de Ramsay, built in 1705 by Claude de Ramsay for his residence as governor of Montreal. Later, it became the center of the fur trade in the city. Now it is an historical museum, and its thick stone walls house many priceless relics of early Canadian life. In the McGill University grounds on Sherbrooke Street, a bronze plaque commemorates the Indian settlement of Hochelaga. McGill University buildings now stand on the same ground. Through McGill's gates have passed many Canadians who shared in pioneering Canada's development. Men like Sir Wilfrid Laurier, the first French-Canadian Prime Minister, whose birthplace at St. Lin has been restored and is maintained as a National Historic Site. Knighted by Queen Victoria, Sir Wilfrid devoted his life to promoting unity and friendship between the French and English-speaking peoples of Canada. At Lachine on the St. Lawrence, just west of Montreal, stands a monument to Robert Cavelier de La Salle. It is said that when La Salle first reached this spot, he believed that China was not far beyond, so his men called the place La Chine. Today, the town that he founded is a thriving industrial center, but the story of Lachine is not without its tragedy. Near the La Salle Memorial stands a stone monument commemorating the terrible Indian massacre of 1689, in which 200 men, women, and children perished. Although some Indians fought the white man, many others played an important role in the fur trade. Indian canoemen not only helped to provide the furs, but along with French and British voyageurs, they transported the trade goods across vast distances. Often their course ran through treacherous waters, and always there was the labor of the portage, around impassable rapids or from one body of water to another. In spite of these hardships, immense quantities of goods were carried over the early routes. The rich trade which evolved became the foundation of Canada's future development. And as the country grew, it grew out from the great St. Lawrence River, that mighty highway of history which has seen so much of the triumph and tribulation of the builders of the Canadian nation.